Hi, everybody. John McLaughlin with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. Suddenly, are there millions of felons now in the U.S.? Welcome back, everyone. Joining us tonight, Michael Ware. He is Controlled Chaos Arms, my firearms guy of choice. And a good reason to join IFC is Michael will help you with those FFL transfers, keep you out of trouble there. And a board member of IFC. And Michael, you've been following this closely as an FFL. The deadline has come and gone. There's a couple injunctions currently in place, but can you kind of give us a layman's explanation of, as of right now anyway, where do we stand?
Well, we're talking about pistol braces and what they regard. So
Right.
The short version is I don't think very many people grasp this properly, but they came right out, ATF rather, came right out and said, you're all felons.
Yep.
And because they changed after a decade of saying, yes, this is fine, and putting it in writing, by the way, and sending it to lots and lots of people that did lots and lots of innovating. They said, okay, now you're all felons. And I think most of America that understood and heard about this probably thought, well, they're giving us a grace period to make a decision on whether we want to destroy the firearm, take it to pieces, or register it or whatever else. Right. And so that's just not true. They said you're felons, and we're going to give you a little bit of time. So I think that a lot of people in the interim didn't think that they were or they were going to be, but they in fact were pronounced that way. And as of what, just a few days ago, they are now. So as of June 1st, off you go. And I'm hearing very, very, very low numbers in terms of registration. So I'm not sure what that means other than the public A is either fed up with ATF and they're monkeying around in people's civil liberties, or B, they didn't know about it. And I think that it's probably a combination of both. That's another big problem when you take this big a group or substrata, if you will, of the firearm community, firearm owners, if you will, and say, okay, we're going to carte blanche, make you all felons, and we'll try and let you know as best we can. That doesn't work very well. And there are a heck of a lot of people that have bought these, whether they're immersed in gun culture and are on YouTube watching videos every day and out at the range, out in a deer stand or a turkey blind or whatever else. It doesn't make any difference. There's a heck of a lot of people that don't know anything about this. So between those and the people that just said, no, I'm not going to go along with your fake registration. What was the article that you and I referenced a little bit ago, or when we were offline? 0.6%.
0.6%. Yeah, not 6%. Put the decimals in front. 0.6. That's an ATF statistic, but you know there are literally millions of these devices, depending on which manufacturer you talk to. You know, we could be, anywhere from 3 million and on the low end to 20, 30 million or more of these things out there.
Yes, there's a bunch. I visited with some of the folks that make them, and they've given me off the record some indication as to how many that they have sold individually. And when you start doing the math, the idea that it's well below 10 million is that's not even remotely close. It's a very, very high number.
Now, you raised a really important point. You and I and the IFC folks are all engaged on a daily basis, watching everything that's happening across the country, 2A related. The majority of my friends are not. I talk to people about this within the day, and what are you talking about? What is the pistol brace thing? I have one of those. I had no idea. I think they're, probably the vast majority of folks that may own one of these devices that, go on your AR-15 or different, firearms, not just the AR, have really no clue what we're even talking about, even after this came out, 120 days ago.
Yep, you're right. And it's a big problem. I don't know how that manifests itself, whether they're pulled over for a traffic stop, maybe they get an accident and an officer comes on scene or whatever else. They're checking the contents of the trunk or whatever else, and oh, I see you have such and such, and the next thing you know, there's a phone call made and the feds show up. I mean, I don't have any idea what that looks like in the future, but it's wholly irresponsible by the ATF to do this. But they're being pushed around by Merrick Garland and Department of Justice, so that's that's not out of the realm of possibility. That's usually what happens is the agencies or regulatory agencies are usually tinkered with by some sort of administration. That's clearly what's happening with the Biden administration.
Now, there's some injunctions in place right now. I think by the end of June, we'll know more. But right now, some of the folks that were actually involved in the lawsuit, Firearms Policy Coalition being one of those, the members of that have a injunction right now. But it's a little fuzzy. Like, is it current members, past members? Can I join right now and be part of this? So for the meantime, while this is sorted out, we're all kind of in this uncomfortable position. Do you have any recommendations, short of, going out and taking a bandsaw to, tens of thousands of dollars worth of firearms you may own?
Well, this is really hairy. It's hard for me to offer a recommendation because I don't want to give an American a bad advice. And so ordinarily in situations like this, having dealt with ATF in the past, you separate these halves, if you will, or these parts, and keep them away from one another, stored, locked, whatever else. And that's apparently, or has in the past, often been enough. Like, for example, you can own full auto kits or destroyed firearms that contain full auto components, and you can have them in a little cardboard box here, and a weapon that they could potentially fit in over there. And it's fine, because until you mix them and make a whole bunch of changes so that they can operate, they're just chunks of metal and plastic and wood, right? Well, that's not actually what's happening here. I visited with I think it was an assistant bureau chief about this, and at ATF, and he was very frank with me, and I was glad that he was able to have this conversation. And he said, well, you understand that if you keep your pistol brace on your coffee table there and remove it, we consider that constructive possession. And I said, well, if I understand what you're saying correctly, if I have a complete weapon with this pistol brace and I remove the pistol brace to this telescoping piece of plastic and I stick it over here and set the gun down over here, you consider that constructive possession? He said, yes, we do. And I said, well, if I didn't have a pistol brace in this hand and set it down, but I actually had a full-blown stock, a telestock, and set it down over there and put what was left, which is the entirety of the firearm, over here, that doesn't constitute constructive possession. No, in that case, it is not.
But yet the head of the ATF testified to Congress, and I mean, there's videos of this floating all over that says, oh yeah, you can separate the two and keep them, and that complies. But here's the head of the ATF giving information that now they're sending out letters, oh, he didn't really mean that, or whatever. I mean, how's the average person supposed to have any chance of figuring this out when the head of the ATF says do this, but then later they say you can't do that?
You have no hope of doing that. I mean, this is part of the fundamental problem with some of the regulatory agencies in the United States right now anyway, and has been for a while. They just say whatever it is they want to say, and there are so many levels of management and middle management that you never really can tell what happens until somebody shows up and whether you get arrested or not. That's a really, really lousy way to live. It's a hard way to adhere to the rules, because everybody that's watching this is saying, yeah, I'm not interested in being a knuckle dragger or a lawbreaker. Right. But if you can't give me a set of rules and leave them, then that's a problem, because this was legal for 10 years or more. And then all of a sudden, now it's not, and I'm a felon. I mean, that's a big, big problem. So when I watch somebody like Dettelbach, which is the ATF director, say that, and I did forfeit the time that he was testifying or whatever else, and I heard him say that, I thought, you know what? This guy either just lied through his teeth or is inept, one or the other. So you've got a guy that this goes to the heart of the matter. Having these two pieces attached is exactly the heart of the matter. And if he can't do that, then, as I said before, he's either stupid or lying, and neither one of those is a good thing.
Do you think in the future we're starting to see the courts come down? You know, we got some injunctions on the pistol brace side of thing, but if you look at other government organizations like EPA that, you know, are just making rules out of thin air and saying because you have a puddle on your farmland, that's navigable waterways and all this, the courts are starting to shoot that down now, what they call Chevron deference. So you can't just take a little bit of authority and start randomly, you know, usurping the power of Congress and making up rules. Do you think we're going to see that transfer down to ATF and other agencies?
I think it would make sense that it would apply, because I think what we need to do probably, in fact, I can tell you for sure we need to really understand what Chevron's deference actually is. Because when I heard that term bantered around, I thought, you know what? I think I know what a Chevron is. Uh, and I think I know what deference means, but I have no idea what they mean together. So I didn't recognize for a long time what was going on. I had to Google this and get schooled up. So basically we're saying when there was a court case, and that's how this Chevron's deference came to be. And I can't remember, it's been maybe 50 or 60 years ago. I don't even remember.
Yes,
But it's been around for a while. And it basically says, in cases of mistaken understanding or ambiguity, then we're going, in terms of the law, okay, the code, US code, whatever it may be, then we're going to rely on the regulatory agency to sort it out. And so that's what's consistently been done. And that lends itself to all kinds of abuse, whether it's ATF or FBI perpetrating abuse as far as civil rights go, or actually, I guess, suppose EPA falls in that same category. So they're abusing their authority on the individual and owners, states, counties, cities, whatever it may be. So I heard this term come up and become into question with the recent water issues in the Supreme Court. And then a year ago, we heard about this with EPA versus West Virginia. And they're taking a step back and saying, you know what, the regulatory agencies are overstepping their authority, and they're weighing in on things that specifically lawmakers, people who are voted into office specifically to handle these things, who have said, with a lot of accountability, by the way, which is why we vote them in and out, have said, we don't want to take this up, or we don't want to take this action because we think that goes too far. And so they didn't legislate a thing or a process or a penalty or a cost, right? And then the regulatory agency shows up and says, nah, we're quite willing to weigh in on that, and we're going to fine you and do all these other things. So I think that it's good that the court's willing to look at it. I think that's some indicator, maybe, I hope, that they're willing to do something about it or step in, because I don't think that they'd bring it up and say, yes, we're willing to hear arguments on this, if they weren't willing to seriously consider something different than the status quo. And I think that that's a good sign.
Now,
Maybe.
from the folks that I talk with, the common question, and I'm going to put this to you, is why haven't members of, the Iowa House, the Senate, our folks in Washington, where are they on this issue? Why hasn't there been an uproar, from all the states saying, hey, ATF, you guys can't do this? I've heard some scuttlebutt that some things were happening and absolutely nothing happened before the drop dead date.
I'm not sure. I think that's a really good question. And I think that what needs to happen is we need to ask these questions of the people we're discussing. I think that the best thing to do is to reach out to your House rep and senator face to face is best, by the way, whether it be a parade, a Saturday morning coffee, whatever else, and just say, listen, this is a big problem. It plagues me. It bothers me. It bothers my friends, families, and neighbors, friends, family, and neighbors. And I'd really like to understand what you're prepared to do to help me, because I need the help. Right. And you should be telling them, I'm a member of the Iowa Firearms Coalition, and these things disturb me. You've got to act. Yeah. And if we're not willing to do that, then I don't know how I could hold a House rep or senator accountable if I don't voice my concerns. That's my job. And then it's our job to follow up and say, what have you found out? Can I plan on hearing back from you? What are next logical steps? What's the best practice moving forward? We have to do that.
It's a significant issue when tens of millions of people are affected by this. And, no bill was brought forward. Certainly nothing made it to a vote. So it really makes you wonder how closely, our lawmakers are even watching what's going on. What's distracting their attention right now from this very important issue to millions of people.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems here is, and I try to rattle this off in such a way that it makes sense to everybody, but basically the oppression that we're seeing from regulatory agencies, specifically ATF, for the purposes of this discussion, the oppression is outpacing our outrage. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yep.
I need for people to truly grasp that their oppression is outpacing our outrage. And what that really means is people like you and I have become so used to ATF habitually stepping over the line that we've become used to it. And I think that it's hard sometimes for congressmen and women to actually keep up with these big pressing problems. I really don't think most of them actually know how ATF impacts things that happen at a coffee table, family room discussion level. I really don't think they understand that. And I think one of the things that has to happen is we've got to have a few more of these discussions more often in earnest with our House reps and senators. There's no way to get anything done without that.
Yeah, and we really need them to like show up at Second Amendment Day at the Capitol and things like that, where some aides were there and we spoke to them, and it just seemed like, I don't know anything, I don't know what you're talking about. So that definitely needs to take place. What you said about face to face, showing up at the the town hall when they visit your county, because just from what I know on the political side, even if there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails or letters that come in, they actually get annoyed with all that. So it's really that face-to-face contact where you talk to your senator or representative, and then they go back and ask their aides, what's the deal on this, that gets action, and not necessarily, the letters and emails they, personally don't even see.
That's often the case. Yes, they do add up, and there is an ongoing tally of those things, so they get an idea of the weight or the volume of correspondences about those things. But as far as relaying personal sentiment, there's nothing better than to do so with a handshake, and a firm one at that. So I think that that's our very best option, is to take this problem or these problems to our elected officials and say, I need your help. This is specifically why you're in office, and I want some follow-up. So how does this best get done?
Right, very good. That covers the kind of where we're standing with ATF right now, and it's not too late. Keep the pressure on. Actually, the next time one of your elected officials is nearby, go give them an earful, respectively, and stay within the lines, but let them know how you feel and how this impacts you. So, second thing before we wrap up, you were on Simon's show on WHO a few weeks back talking about protecting our schools. I know with kids in school, that's something that you're concerned with.
Oh, yeah.
We're trying to get this IFC Educator Academy off the ground to kind of be a pilot program. So just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that and kind of the reaction you got from being on the air talking with Simon about this.
Well, it's fantastic. Simon's show is a really good one to discuss these kinds of things, because he's got a very broad audience and they're discerning members of the state and beyond. There's a lot of people that listen to this that are well outside of the two rivers that contain Iowa. So it's a really good place to visit. And emails back, considerations I heard from friends and family, the listeners, among customers, whatever else, was overwhelmingly positive. I don't remember hearing a single thing that was negative whatsoever. And it is true. It's very, very basic. I think that it's pretty safe to say, whether you have children or not, that you would probably agree. Children are our most precious resource, if you think about it in those terms. And if we're not going to protect them, that's really silly. And it's counter to everything that we're hardwired to understand. So it's pretty simple to get on board. It's pretty easy to get on board, but there are some people out there, and I do understand this, I truly do, that they freeze and they lock up when they hear the word gun and then they hear the word school together, because we've said these things should be separated for so long, or they have been at least said or propagandized anyway, that it's time that we reconsider this. So why would I protect my children at the risk of my own life, or protect somebody else's child at the risk of my life, and then send them to a place where they were no longer protected? I don't understand, if you think about it in those basic, simple terms, how you could arrive at any other conclusion, unless there was something wrong with you or you were cruel. And I don't think that there truly are that many people that fall in that category. It's just a lot of people haven't come around to this, or not enough yet. But there are a bunch who have, and they're quite ready, and they're quite willing to see their children protected everywhere, rather than a great big group of them in one spot. That's a gun-free zone sign on the door, or whatever it may be, or a policy like that. I mean, that's just silly. And the other thing about it is, if you really think about it, there was some pushback from the insurance community over the businesses over, oh, we don't think that we can allow this, and we're going to monkey with your rates because we're concerned about it. But if you truly think about it, how can an insurance company actually say, I'm going to stop saving children? I'm going to obstruct fostering a atmosphere where we stop bad things. I mean, think about that. Does the insurance company truly want to be there in their position? And oh, by the way, doesn't that actually make them heavily liable for any bad things that do happen when they've said, no, you can't protect kids?
Right.
I don't know how many zeros end up on the back end of a lawsuit like that.
Yeah.
But
well, you look at Uvalde and Parkland, it's more than 6.
What I thought I heard somebody say the other day that Uvalde lawsuit was 20-some billion dollars now. Is that right?
Yeah, the lawsuits are totaling up around, with a B, absolutely. So yeah, that's definitely a concern. I just saw some polling from an article you may have seen that this talks about, what percentage of school staff would actually take training like that. And, I don't know if they did rural and, metro areas and put it all together, but it's at around 20%, which I found, quite surprising that that many are willing. And certainly in Iowa, we've seen numbers even higher than that.
I think it's a heck of a lot more than that. And here's why I think that I could make that leap. As everybody watching this probably knows, well, Iowa added the Freedom Amendment in November of 2022. We didn't have any kind of right to keep and bear arms expressly written in our Constitution, and we passed that at 65% approval rating. We passed that with 97 of 99 counties carrying, and just missed the 98th one by this much. Yeah. So if you really look at a cross section of Iowa and you look at the number of people that are saying, yes, we believe in Second Amendment values, yes, we believe in these virtues, and then you apply that to children, I seriously doubt the number is as low as 20% are willing to carry. And maybe the number of people willing to say, I'm going to take on this training and whatever risk is associated with it and the reward, maybe that number is a little low on the front end just because of people are hesitant to raise their hand in the beginning. But if you really look at the overall satisfaction rating associated with that, I can't imagine at the end of the day that it's below 50%. I don't believe it. I mean, we just had a statewide election, a statewide litmus test. This isn't some Gallup poll with 1,200 people being polled on Tuesday afternoon with some very average questions. This basically said, do you or do you not support a very strong right to keep and bear arms? Very strong. And 65% yes. You don't get to 65 points without people on the left and the right and the middle saying, yes, we believe in civil liberties. We believe in civil rights and these basic human things, and we want them protected. So the idea that there's this huge force actually saying no to protecting children in school, that's just not true. I think what you'll run into, John, is a situation where the people who are advocates probably aren't very loud, and they need to be, and it's okay if they are.
Yeah, that's the key. And, the naysayers are loud and aggressive and like to use social media. But just from what we've seen from the IFC Educators Academy, which is online now for applications, we continue to accept those. We're going to go through those, but I can tell you there's already more applications than spots available. But, that gives us some ideas of maybe where to head in the future. So go to our events page on our iowafc.org website and go ahead and fill it out, send it in. And even if you don't get selected for the first round, we're going to give you valuable information that'll help your school and your community in the future. So Michael, thank you for joining us. So we appreciate your nonstop efforts virtually around the clock for years and years. Most folks don't have any idea how hard that you've worked to protect freedom in Iowa. So from all of us, thank you for that. Thanks to all our board members and more importantly, all of our members and followers across the state. And we will see you again next week on Warrior Wednesday.
We've got a fantastic team at IFC. It's not just me. It's in fact, it's very little me. It's a fantastic group of volunteers, and I'm very proud of all of them.
Amen. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone, and we'll see you again soon.